Hey, welcome to our podcast. Happy to have James Slade with us today. And just quick intro. What I know of James, he's been a great friend that we've been able to gain very quickly. We just met. Was it a little over a month ago, James? Right?
Yep. Yep.
And within that last month, I feel like I have a new best friend. It's been a great journey together, and mostly our relationship has been meeting together with other businesses, and we'll get into that. But uh, James has been a phenomenal asset for our company and many others, and we're grateful that you take the time to meet with us today and teach us a little bit about how businesses can best apply AI to their situations. So, with that, James, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into AI, maybe what your background previous was, and just tell us your story?
Sure. Yeah. And thanks for having me. Appreciate this time. It's kind of cool to share thoughts and ideas of you know AI, especially because
Yeah.
it's an exciting world. I enjoy it. But a little bit of background is I started out with like building homes, um, and quickly realized that
Wait, time out. Building homes and AI agents are very different
I know,
industries.
right?
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's hear the story.
I heard this saying recently, actually, with you. Like I'm not fat, I'm well rounded. So this is my background story to help kind of give some context to that. So I started out building homes, did that for a decade, developed land, big, multi-million-dollar custom homes that I built, and I found out that we were like extremely limited on getting the word out. You could put a sign in and you could list it on the MLS, and that was about it. And that was frustrating to me. I was like, how can you get the word out for this? There's got to be another way, right? And that was just my limited knowledge. I didn't know much about
So,
that.
so these multi-million dollar homes, these weren't designed by individuals. These were spec homes you were building.
So it was a full blown subdivision. So we had models, right, and they would come through and see all the options, and we'd have a realtor that would sit in there and sell them on those options, and then once they would close the deal, then we would go and build them in this
So you,
subdivision, right?
you went full developer on it. You weren't
Yeah,
just building homes. You were developer, contractor. You were everything.
all in. Yeah,
Okay.
really go halfway. So
That is
yeah,
one thing I've learned about James is James does go all in, which I love.
So yeah, we I did that for a decade or so, and then it was there was a lot of considerations with like I made a change. I pivoted into marketing at that point, and there was a couple of reasons.
So
One
so
was
you went into marketing. You were just frustrated that you couldn't MLS and just
yep, and the
putting a
sales
sign
cycle was
out. That was
long,
it.
and it was like $2 million transactions. So there's a lot of like anxiety and pressure and high emotions, and I was like, oh, is there another way? There's got to be another way, right? So then I got into marketing and I was doing e-commerce and just like I was like $20 if somebody is dissatisfied or whatever. You're like, here you go, here's your money back. It's like
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a big deal. So and then I realized that in order to be successful with e-commerce, you really needed to know marketing. It came back to that, right? So over the years, I've kind of like learned a lot of the skills with marketing and did that for about a decade. And then what I found with marketing was I would serve clients and like help them with this process. And there were so many things that you need to do once the lead comes in that it was still not solving the issues for my clients. I'm like, they thought, oh, I just need more leads. I need more leads, right? And then that would happen, and those issues are still there. And so that's what really got me into AI was, well, how do we automate that? Like, it's you got to go find somebody, you got to train them, you got to manage when they're out for maternity leave and their sick days, and They have emotionally good days and emotionally bad days, and like, how do you like streamline and help this and elevate
Yeah. Yeah.
these people? And so, I started exploring AI, and like most people, I started with ChatGPT, and I'm like, this is amazing. It's writing ads for me, and blog articles and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and then I
I think most
thought
of
of,
us have gone down that road, right?
right, and he's
But
like,
but
this is
then but then
incredible.
we stop. We're like, okay, this is it. Like
Yeah,
ChatGPT is my whole world. I live here and I don't need to go anywhere else.
yeah. My brother, he was writing something down. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you just don't write anything anymore. You put a prompt into
Yeah,
AI.
yeah,
I
that's
even like
what a
speak
waste
it.
of time.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, that got me into AI agents, and then there's a rabbit hole, and it's an exciting one, right? Because I'm like, oh, you can solve this issue, and then oh, what else can it do? And then start asking the question, what can it not do, right?
Okay,
Because
okay.
there's
So
so many. Yeah,
quick question. I'm going to interject real quick. So you are talking about AI agents. If pretend all I know is Chat GPT and I'm in love with it, but I don't know what an actual agent is. What is that?
yeah. So here's an example. Like you wanted to write a blog article, right, for your website that was SEO. So you would first you're like, well, I need to research and find the keywords that we're targeting so that it helps with SEO and solves problems, etc. So you would do that with the tool, and then you'd be like, okay, now I know what the keyword is, and I kind of understand the topic. So you use AI to write the blog. After that, you would copy whatever Chat GPT or whatever made the blog, and then you would go and put it on your site and post it on your site. Well, an agent does all of those steps. So you press the play button, and it goes and does the keyword research for you, and then it writes the article, and then it posts it on your site, right? So that's an example of what an agent does versus like using ChatGPT.
So an agent is more of like the complete workflow, whereas ChatGPT is just you have inputs that you have to manually put in, and then it'll give you the output that directly correlates to your input.
Yep, yep. So
But the
somebody,
agent is, hey, I want this workflow. Go.
yep, and you give it like one simple prompt, and it can extrapolate and connect to the tools and integration. So like the tools are like where work actually gets done, and that's where it takes ChatGPT to the next level, and it's the agentic process, right? Where you actually give it some ability and some tools to do that.
Okay. Well, thanks for that understanding. So, what industries have you seen? You've been doing this for a while now. What industries have you seen that have received the largest benefit?
Um, so any industry that, that's an interesting question because it started out with any industry that uses computers, but we're getting into stuff where people are using like printed documents and handwritten notes and stuff that we can automate that process. So a lot of industries usually have the same bottlenecks, if you will. So you either don't have sales, you don't have profit, or your organization is like a disaster, right? It's like, well, what's happening? I don't even know, right? And that sort of thing. Or it is happening, it's just like consuming a lot of time, and there's a lot of like oversight that needs to happen, etc. And so in each one of these sales, profits, and order, right? AI can step in and help to streamline that so that you can elevate your staff, right? So they can do more of the things that people are good at, because nobody likes to pull data and manually enter it here. I mean, that's brain damage. So like get AI to do that so that the person can then just review the data and go, oh, based on this, here's where we think we should move forward, right?
You and I have spoken about this in other conversations about how AI will amplify the human capacity, right? And so it's not here to replace humans, but it's here to amplify what we're able to do for the world. Can you tell us a little bit more of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so If any of you have ever dug a hole with a shovel, you'd be like, this is a lot of work. Like, I never want to do this again, ever. And so you picture like you start out with digging with your hands and like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to use a shovel. And then you realize, you know what? I could use an excavator, which is a big, heavy piece of equipment. And it can do that 100 times faster than me with a shovel. And all I have to do is move this joystick. And that's what I picture AI doing. It's like everybody is working with these shovels and they're like killing themselves over digging this hole or, whatever work process they're trying to do. And you're like, well, why don't we just get a better tool in there and then they can do so much more with it?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great analogy. Um, so, what are the most common use cases right now for the average business? What are we seeing?
Well, let's just break it down, I guess. So, for let's say marketing and sales, because that's what I started, you know, my journey on with AI. One, it can do cold outreach. And so it can write emails, it can research leads, it can scrape leads, right? And it does all of those in sequence. And then it can send that out very personalized emails that, it's like finding everything that somebody has posted and, comments that they've made and maybe jobs that they're looking for, et cetera. And it researches all of this information and can write a very personalized email. That's totally different than a cold email outreach where you switch the name, right? So that's the cold outreach. As far as like content generation for like your LinkedIn or if you're doing stuff for Instagram or YouTube, Facebook, whatever, not only can it plan out the whole year, but it can also create the content and post it. And so the human in the loop at this point is instead of like this 90% being brain damage of like stuff that they would like, oh, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. They're just reviewing it and going like, yes, that looks good. No, we need to revise that. It's not in alignment. And so they're making these rapid fire decisions and then they hit the go button again and it'll do that. So that's kind of like on the marketing side. On sales, setting appointments, emails, generating proposals, um, summarizing meetings, right? And putting that into a task list, etc. So booking meetings, etc., like live chat agents, phone agents. Uh,
So,
anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of different things.
yeah, 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 that is helpful. One of my favorite things has been I don't take notes during meetings anymore. I don't need to, right? We have AI recording and transcribing the entire meeting, and then it addresses whose action items belong where, and at the end, we have a full review that's sent out to everybody that was in the meeting with those action items. But you mentioned one thing that I think is important for a lot of people that, like me, perhaps, where they're just feel like meetings are maybe getting out of hand, and they'd like to remember, oh wait, I did promise that I would get that done, and I didn't even remember that I had said that, but I do now. um, now that it's too late.
That's right. Yeah.
How can we automate that? So yeah, it's listening to the meeting, it's transcribing, it's telling everybody what they've said they're going to do. So how do you put it into action?
So my brother, who I deeply respect, coined this as the commitment agent. What promises am I making and keeping track of? And so you can automate this whole process by once you have the script, right, of the conversation, large language model LLMs and extract that and categorize it and create tasks, right? And so it's good at that. So it's like you're feeding the script into the prompt of ChatGPT. You just like directly put it in there, and ChatGPT summarizes and go, here's all the tasks, and here's when they're due, and here's who needs to do them. But taking that one step further is you can connect it with some agentic workflows to project management software, Monday.com, Notion, any CRM or any project management software that has an API connection. You can then feed all of these tasks into there. right? So it's already filling out that project management. What takes it a step further, which is really exciting, is your personal assistant agent, where it can give you reports in the morning, say, here's the things that you could work on today. What would you like to prioritize? And you just talk to it back and forth, and it's your personal assistant. It will book calls and it will set reminders and be like, hey, can you write an email to so and so and let them know that we need this, right? And it will do it, right? So I love that aspect of the whole flow because it's like every time I build an agent, it highlights the next agent that needs to be built. It's like, oh well, I don't want to do that either. so, so let's just build an agent to fix that problem.
So that the idea of a personal assistant that can read all my emails and keep me in line, like that's a dream, right? But
Yeah,
you're saying that it's a reality. Um, what
yeah,
what does it take to build out something like that? Because there's going to be a lot of business owners that are saying, "Hey, that obviously is a dream, but I haven't seen it happen yet."
yeah.
What do you say to them?
So it takes a little bit of work and effort and pulling information from people's minds. So there's workflows, and there's always a workflow. It's just a lot of times it's in somebody's mind. And so extracting that is the process that it takes in order to get it down on paper. So you're familiar with SOPs, right? And people are like, oh yeah, let's create SOPs for everything, which is a good first step. But just creating an SOP, to me, is like that's work,
It's
and like
and it's just creating more tasks.
somebody has to do it, right? And I'm like,
Yep.
that's the problem. And like, let's create an SOP so I don't have to do it, but still it's there and somebody has to do it. So then you build an agent, an AI agent around that SOP that does it. And that just kind of like solves that issue of we need this task done. What are the steps? And the SOP I think is step one. Building the agent is step two.
Okay. So how long would that take for a business owner if they're saying, "Okay, I'm in"? What does that look like?
So it takes like a month. If you've got a process and you're like, I would like to just automate this. Then, it takes a week or so to kind of extract that information, it takes a week to build it, a week to test it, and then the deployment, right? Fine tuning, right? If you What you can do all of the processes at once, but what I recommend is you go through Mike McAllowett's process of fix this next and focus on the thing that's going to have the deepest impact on your company and fix that. Because what's going to happen is you've got an agent that just solved the bottleneck that is preventing the work from your whole force from progressing. You fix that one bottleneck and it helps everyone. And so it's like
Elevates
have
the
the
whole
deepest
company.
impact. Yep.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, normally this would take 3 months to hire somebody and train them and get them doing this, but you do it with an AI agent, and it takes a month. And then you're like, well, now I got 2 extra months. What's the next? What else can we solve with this thing,
Yeah.
right? And then, I've had several conversations with people. They're like, oh, can it do this? And you're like, yes, it can. So it like gets the gear
it
rolling
just
of like,
it
what
just
can I
snowballs
automate?
into what else can be automated here.
Right.
Okay. So what are some of the misconceptions that people have about building out these AI agents?
Um, a lot of people think that it has to be more manual than it actually does. They're like, oh, if it can do this one tiny thing, then I can manually do steps 3 through 7. And I'm like, well, let's just skip 3 through 7 and just have it do all of those. That seems to be the biggest misconception that I run across is they think, well, it can solve this one thing out of this whole process.
So it's
So
one part of the workflow that they're focused on, but the reality is it can do the entire workflow.
yeah, and so a lot of times I have to find out what the end result is instead of like this one issue. And then we're like, well, let's just build it out to get that end result so that you don't have to do all of these things. So that's probably the thing that comes up the most.
Okay. So for the skeptic out there, right, saying, I don't think AI should be used as much as these people are pushing for it to be. So what's your opinion of the areas where AI should not be in?
That's a good question. So AI is good at a lot of things, but there's some things where you need a human touch. And um, usually reviewing content generation is a critical piece that you need a human in the loop for, right? And um, like with employees, they'll go and they'll be doing whatever their task is that they're doing. And as like an employer, you probably don't even think about it anymore. Like they're doing it until there's like an emergency and they're like, oh, we need to step in and figure this out. And so I feel with AI agents, it's somewhat similar. It's a lot easier to manage um, because it gives you
No
the
sick days.
right, right. Well, and you are aware of what's going on a lot faster. And so the human in the loop needs to be that person where it's like they check once a week and like, yes, everything's performing well, continue, right? And the AI can give the report and be like, this is what's happening. And so that's where I think a human in the loop is very needed still, just to make sure it's running, make sure the machine
Sure.
is operating the way it should. And what's interesting to me is like over the time frame that I've been doing this, like if it's not working, just wait a couple of weeks. And the improvements in the AI industry are going so fast. That's like that's going to solve that issue, and it will never come up again. So it's like I like it because there's like you have one issue, and you're like, well, let's fix it, and you fix it one time, and it's done. Like you don't have to fix that
Yeah.
again. It's like, oh, now I don't have to worry about that, and you move on to the next, and it just kind of like accelerates that improvement. So human in the loop for those situations. There are like if you have a client facing AI agent that's doing phone calls or emails or live chat, right? Um, you want a human in the loop for escalations. The thing is you don't get as many escalations with AI because what happens so like if you've ever been on hold or like talking to customer support and you're like, hey, I need help with this, they're like, well, I need to escalate it because I don't have the authority to do that. Well, with AI
Hey,
you get
I
skeptic.
I hope UPS is listening to this.
Right, so it can escalate through like three or four levels of what humans are normally used to doing, but there's going to be at some point where it's like, yeah, it just isn't working out, we need to get a human in the loop, right? And so it does elevate what it can do, but it can't do everything. So there's got to be a human element to handle those, one-off use cases or the edge cases.
Sure. Sure. Um,
I can't
are the,
stand being on hold. I'm like, why? Why
I
am I on hold? The technology is here. I should never be on hold again my entire life.
and phone. So talk to us a little bit about phone trees. And I know you briefly mentioned it, but I have seen this to be one of the greatest benefits to those with a large number of inbound calls. Tell us how this is better than a phone tree.
So phone trees are amazing technology. It's incredible that you can listen, press a number, be routed to these things. But
That's one perspective.
yeah, it's an amazing technology. But I feel like they're outdated. It's going to a library to read a book instead of going on the internet. It's a little bit
Yeah.
outdated. With AI agents, the voice is so and flowing that you can carry on a conversation with it. Have you ever experienced where you're like it asks you, what do you want to help with? And you say a word, a keyword, and it's like, did you say this word? And you're like, no, not even close to what I said, and it's like, oh, sorry, I didn't understand that. Is this the word you said? And you're like, no, like like this is like
Yeah. Yeah.
frustrating experience. Well, with the LLM, I'm sorry, with the AI that helps with that, it's just like having a conversation with a person where they understand what you're saying, and it immediately, instead of like waiting for all the options 1 through 9, you just talk to it like a normal person and it will route you like a normal person would. The thing is it's not a person. It can answer 20 calls at once and
Yeah.
handle them at the same time and route it, with the logic that it needs to route it to. And one thing I've noticed is like if somebody is um, unhappy, we'll put it that way, and they're calling into a company, the AI is always polite. It doesn't get offended. It doesn't get like doesn't
Emotionally
talk back. It
charged.
doesn't. Yeah, it's just polite and it de-escalates its situations because it's AI. And like, oh, I'm sorry, you experienced that. Like it has the empathy that needs. Like if anybody's used ChatGPT, they know that. Like, oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Like never says like you're foolish for giving me the wrong prompt. It doesn't really react that way, right? So the phone agents do the same thing with humans.
so, so um, I guess just a quick confession. Um, with ChatGPT, I used to get pretty frustrated with like, how dumb are you? Like, come on. And then I realized that the output is a direct correlation of the input, and it's like, oh, it's me. It's but I have a friend, and I was telling him how I would tell ChatGPT, like, I can't believe you got this wrong. This is so easy. Pick it up.
You slacker.
You're
Yeah.
stupid, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, dude, you got to be nice to the bots. I'm like, what? He's like, because, dude, they'll remember how you treated them.
Well, that's something else that I've noticed with, like these phone agents. People don't get upset with AI because there's no point,
Right.
It's like,
There's, you're not going
why
to
am I
gain
yelling at
anything.
I guess sometimes I yell at machines. That's true, but it doesn't have any impact. It's just I need to vent, right? It's better to vent to a machine than to vent to a real person because they're real people. You want to care for them and take care of them, and I think it's better to have an AI in that position anyway, just to like foster a good atmosphere for the rest of your team.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right. So as you and I have had conversations with businesses, a lot of the time at the end, we'll create these processes, we'll create these agents, and it will definitely help improve things, right? And we're saving a lot of labor hours, and things are going great. And then the question of, well, how much does it cost, right? That always comes up. How If I want to invest in an AI agent custom for my business, what's the best, just rough method I can use to calculate what I need to save for that task?
That's a good question. Typically, it costs about half as much as what it would cost to hire and train an employee to do that or a staff member, right? And so, that's why I think AI is exploding as much as it is. That's why it's such a big buzzword because business owners or managers are like, wait, we can, we can get these tasks done at half the cost. And, it causes a lot of this fear of like, oh, we're going to replace, my job's going to be replaced, or I'm replacing this employee who actually I really like. But I don't feel like that's the case at all. I feel like your throughput increases. Your out, whatever you produce increases when you use these tools. Just like that analogy with digging the hole with an excavator. It's like you still got somebody there and making the decisions. They're just making 10 times as many and producing 10 times as much because of this tool that you brought on that cost you half, right? And so
Yeah,
those tend to multiply. I think that's why AI is such a huge craze right now because people are like, wow, this is getting us a good ROI.
sure. Okay. So that's helpful as we're trying to figure out, do I need to save, or can I reallocate this individual to a different department, or do they have a skill set that would best serve somewhere else? And then now I'm getting that additional revenue stream from their skill set in another area, and I've you're saying that I can save roughly 50% of the cost right out the gate.
Yeah. Yep. And the spin up is a lot faster, um, than getting an employee there. And consistency, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So try and picture that analogy. Let's say you've got somebody you dig trenches. That's what you do. Your business, you're really good at digging trenches. Like, I'm the best in the industry. And you're like, well, I'm just going to get 10 more people and give them all a shovel and we'll just knock it out, right? You're like, or the one that I have right now, I could just get them an excavator and we could do so much more. The difference is an excavator costs way more than a shovel, whereas AI costs half of what an employee costs,
Half
right?
of the shovel.
That's right. so, so you can kind of see how businesses can scale with that because they're like, well, I can just give them this tool. They'll do so much more. They'll produce so much more. Their return on investment for that employee goes way up just by having this tool that costs half of what an employee costs.
So what's the greatest impact on a business that you've seen AI be able to produce?
That's a good question. So it's
Just
like what
one of the clients you've worked with, what's give us a story of how that has
it's.
improved their
I'm thinking
ROI
of one in
and
particular that like it's very liberating. They're like, I want to do these 6 things, but I only have the bandwidth to do one. So let's do this one. And then when we were working with them, we are like, well, why don't we just do all 6? And it's the same cost as doing the one. And that realization, that dawning, is huge, right? So, for example, we built out, they wanted to generate more leads. So we built out, they're like, we want to do some social posts, right, with the AI agent. So we did. They also wanted to do blog posts. They wanted to do follow up emails. They wanted to have, um, an onboarding sequence.
okay.
And these were all steps in the process that they needed to build. And they're like, but for now, let's just write the blogs. And I'm like, well, let's just build all of it.
Hmm.
Let's just get it all done. And it's, kind of
And you're saying it was the same cost to do all of it as it would have been just the one piece.
what they were thinking because they're like, well, we were going to hire somebody to do this, to write blog articles, but maybe we can do it with AI, right? And that was the question. I'm like, well, not only can AI do it, but why don't we just do all of these other things that you're planning to do for that, the same cost as what they thought the employee was going to cost, right?
Okay, so the employee that was going to be hired for task one in the sequence, for the same price, they were able to do the entire sequence. Okay.
Right.
And what has that done for that business?
So, um, so they're growing much faster than they initially were projecting. Um,
That's
which I think
terrible.
is the goal of a lot of business. Not all, right? But some,
What a
they want to
terrible
grow
terrible
faster.
problem to have.
Right. They have different bottlenecks now, which we're working on with them currently. Of like, well, how do we filter these, and how do we qualify them, and you know, how do we
Yeah.
get more of the sales process done before we actually get it to a human, so that our sales reps are like their sales reps are overworked right now. So
Those
that gives you an
poor
idea. Yeah,
overworked sales reps.
I know, right? So
Uh,
so that's kind of what I've seen has been like a huge impact. It's like we thought this was our bottleneck and that went away really fast. And now the other bottleneck is like, well, that's a good bottleneck to have. Like we
so
like that.
I'm not sure what would be worse, the previous issues or extra whiny sales reps like that.
I don't know. It's give or take right there.
All right, so what's the most fun, the coolest agent you've ever built? What is
Okay.
it? What does it do?
So personal assistant is the coolest because
Okay.
I don't like to write emails. I don't like to go and look at emails. I hardly look at my emails ever now. So the personal assistant is the coolest because it has an impact on me and my flows, right? And so I like that about it. I
So
love
the coolest
yeah,
agent you've ever built is your personal assistant.
that's right.
I love that.
Well, it has the most impact on me, so it's the most exciting, I guess, for me personally. I'm sure if I talk to clients, then it wouldn't be that one because they're like that doesn't impact them. But for me, I'm like, oh, I love this. I love just chatting and saying, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And I don't have to do it, which is great.
Yeah, that's. That's pretty fantastic. All right. So if somebody said, okay, I've listened, I think it's great, but I don't even know where to start. Like, who do I talk to? How do I get going? What platform should I look at if it was like a DIY type person? Um, what would be helpful?
You know, we could chat. If you want to do DIY, there are a ton of tools out there. You can look on YouTube and find them. I'll give you a couple. I would look at Lindy, Lindy.ai. I was so excited when I found Lindy. I'm like, oh, it can do all of these things. And it can. It has some limitations, but it's a great starting point. I quickly found the ceiling because I like to build, the Cadillac. It was like, well, how about let's just do everything, right? And Lindy doesn't do that, but it does single tasks really well. So
But getting started as a DIYer, Lindy AI is a great place to start.
it's great. It'll blow your mind. It'll be like, wow, I can't believe you can do all of these things. So that would be a great starting point. If you're like, what happens is people are like, they use it and then they're like, it's amazing what it can do, and it opens their eyes, and they're like, what about this use case? And you're like, and it can do it. It just struggles a little bit, and there's other tools and other processes that actually help with those. But I would say Lindy's a good starting point.
Okay.
You don't
Um,
need to know coding. You just like drag a few
that's
nodes around and
Yeah, that's the other thing is like when ChatGPT first came out, I was all in. I loved it. We've been playing around. I was teaching just a night course at the local university, and I started showing some of my students, and they flipped out. They were not happy with it at all. And I there was one of my students, and she had just written a dissertation on just female athletes, eating disorders, and male coaches. I thought I've never even taken that into consideration. And so she told me about her dissertation, and I said, "Well, let's see what AI can produce." And I mean, when ChatGPT was first starting, it had a whole lot less boundaries, right? And I gave it the exact input that she told me of what her findings were, and then I needed it to cite, and it went. And as she's watching it, so I had it up on the big screen for the whole class, and it's just going through, and her eyes bugged, and she was like, "I hate it. I don't like this." And I was
oh,
like,
that's
"What do you mean? This is amazing, right?"
yeah.
I was like, "I had no idea that there was such a strong correlation in that specific area." I was like, "This is fascinating to learn all this." And we're reading as it's going. And she's like, "I've been working on that for months, and this is doing what all of my work that I've put in, this is doing it right away." She's like, I don't like it. And of course she doesn't like it,
Yeah.
right? She's worked so hard, and now there's a tool that just bam spits out. And it what was interesting was it was using very similar sources, and I didn't tell it what sources to go get. It just found them, and they were very similar to what she had been studying about. And that causes fear, right? Like, I've worked so hard, and now months of hard work can be done in 30 seconds. And it was discouraging to her a bit. But I really do view AI as a tool to help you do the correct research, to find the right sources, and it's still going to need an input, right? It can't do everything. It still needs that human interaction for the creative process in some of those things. But what are we going to do with all of our free time if we can create all these workflows, right?
Yeah.
And just
I,
a
I
per
like the 80/20 rule, right?
Yeah,
Where you make AI do 80% of it and you're in charge of that other 20. You
that's a
craft
great
the right
rule.
questions, you put them in, and then you review the results. You don't have to do all the heavy lifting in the middle, which I don't like to do. I don't know. So there are some people that just love that. They're like, give me a task. I want to do these things and all this process exactly. That is a personality type, which is great. It's not me. We're just like, oh, I don't know, like I got to do that. No way. But I will spend hours and hours building AI agents that do that for me. Um, so I like engine builders. I like anything that's like, how about let's just create a system that does that on autopilot so that I don't have to do the heavy lifting. However, I do like the inputs and the review because I like making decisions. It's very fulfilling. It's like if you have, so my wife, she struggles with decisions. She doesn't like them. What I found is she she doesn't like them because she usually doesn't have all the information, and collecting that information is a lot of work, right? And so if
That's
you can
fair.
get tools to help you bring all of the information, making a decision is actually pretty easy. It's when you have limited information that makes decisions harder. So what I like about AI is it brings all of that to the surface. So you're like, oh, this is a very clear decision. It's just let's move forward with that.
Yeah, I like that. It's bringing that information to the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see where we go with AI. Obviously, for the skeptics, there's a lot of dark things that have already started with AI. Um, but for those that are trying to create and build and produce something that will benefit humanity, I think there's just as much or more on that side of the scale. And I'm really excited to see what it can do for not just the business owners, but people in the thick of it within each of these businesses, how much of their jobs are going to be alleviated. And I
Here's an example.
yeah,
Um, my my wife again does not like the question, "What's for dinner?" And I'm
like
like,
every
"Well,
other mother in the whole world, right?
what's for dinner? Worst question ever." And I'm like, "Well, why don't we fix that?" So we built an AI agent.
Because you're a man and you want to fix things.
Let's fix
That's
that
a different
system.
podcast, James. That's
I know. I hear you. I hear your pain. Yeah, I'm. That's not my first go-to, but it should be. Let's fix that. Build an AI. You never. The kids are like, if they ask you what's for dinner, say, "Don't ask me." Go here and ask. We have some inputs where they can ask, and they have everything there, right?
so do you have like a digital board on the wall that they can go talk to about dinner?
It's their through their phone.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's even better. Don't
like
even come in the kitchen. Just go.
yeah. Or like, if you ask that question again, we're taking your phone away, and then you know, then they have a consequence and they move forward. So anyway, it's a great way to think. Well, how can I make my life a little bit more pleasant? Like, ooh, that was painful. I don't want to do that again. How
So
can I
I've
get AI
got a
help?
I've got another question for you.
Yeah.
Does your wife enjoy that?
Does she enjoy which part?
The AI taking the "What's for dinner" question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because she doesn't like that question.
All right, we'll have
You
to
know.
get your wife to have a conversation with my wife. Actually, hates technology altogether. She
Oh,
she
all right.
doesn't she 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 uh she and technology don't get along, and
So my wife's is similar.
which is why I'm so grateful that Simtech has a help desk and that she has the phone number to call in and get help.
This isn't working. Yeah, I get
and
those.
and you know what? Our help desk is a whole lot more responsive than I am, and she loves that.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, I'm excited about where AI is going. I believe that the 40-hour work week for everyone should be cut down. It can be cut down, and it'll give us more time to actually go live the lives we choose to live. And I
Yeah,
am very excited about that.
yeah. When
But
when early 1800s, when you're a farmer, you'd work 17 hours days. 8 hour days would have been like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't get everything done in 8 hours. No way. But with advancements in technology, 8 hours or 9 or 10, whatever you're working. Now we're getting to that next stage where it's going to be 4, 3. Do you have to even work this day? No. And you still are producing the same results or even more than what you were
right,
doing before. I like that part of it.
yeah. Well, any final thoughts and inspirations for people to go get just started and dig into it?
Yeah, I like genuinely I, I care about people to the point where they're frustrated with something, and I'm like, well, do we even need that? We don't need to be frustrated with that. How can we elevate that, right? And so if like you're experiencing that, think through that and like, well, do I need to be in this slog right now? Do I need to be frustrated with whatever, I'm doing? And maybe explore because AI could be a solution, but there could be others. I feel like people struggle with a lot of struggles that they don't need to, that they can be elevated. So that's kind of a driving force for me. So I guess I would close with that. Like if you're struggling with something, you probably don't need to. You just lift out of that, and you can do it with AI or other tools and resources that help with that. But that's what I would end with.
I'm very grateful that you take the time to jump on here with us and give everyone out there that driving force to say, all right, I'm struggling with this and I don't have to, and I'm not going to anymore. We're done struggling, and we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna grow and develop and work less while the robots work more. Um, Actually, one last thing before we
Okay.
end. You and I were on a call with a company, and she gave us a resource that has been so fantastic, and it's been a huge time suck. Uh, Guilty pleasure at this point. The website is, and I encourage everyone listening to this to just go play around. And I think the people that it may be the most helpful for are students, kids trying to figure out what they want to do for work and a career. WillRobotsTakeMyJob.com. Not a sponsor yet. Uh, but WillRobotsTakeMyJob.com. And it's got some incredible data and just risk factors of what positions will be automated shortly, and it also helps businesses to see what are the common AI agents out there right now that I could help certain departments, accounting and bookkeeping. They have a huge benefit to integrate AI as far as efficiencies and accuracies in their books. So there's a lot of great tools out there, but willrobotstakemyjob.com has been a good time suck and and a great resource to see where our business is struggling that we can help with automation. But again, James, thank you, and thanks all of you for tuning in to Between Milestones, hosted by Simtech, where we provide solutions that make work easier, businesses stronger, and lives better. So if you found anything valuable here, consider sharing it with fellow business owners. And for more insights and real conversations, connect with us on LinkedIn or visit simtech.com. And until next time, keep building what matters most. Thanks, James.